Good day, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to CSA Talks again, this time with Mr. Rohit Talwar. Rohit is a global futurist, strategist, award-winning speaker. He's very well known for his inspirational style, deep and impactful presentation way of, presenting things, critical insights to wider audience in the world. He advises global firms, industries, governments about not only how to survive, but how to thrive, spot and manage emerging risks, and at the same time, advising about big content to many organizations. He is also the CEO of a company called Fast Future. Welcome, Rohit, for this conversation again. Thank you so much for accepting the conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I want to start with the first question of asking, I know your company Fast Future is presenting critical insights to companies, and you do the research, lots of exploration of deep content. And it's when we say content, it's too much content in the world right now. And everybody creates content. But what is important is not the superficial information, but the deep knowledge, which becomes wisdom in the long term. So what is critical insight for you? How would you define critical insight?
Well, as you say, it's about distinguishing between the noise and the more fundamental shifts that are happening. So a very good example today is the crypto economy, crypto tokens, cryptocurrencies. The noise is about the price of Bitcoin, how volatile the market is, regulation, etc. But the deeper content is the fundamental shift we're seeing through really advanced technology and what that could mean for the future of the economy, for how we run our businesses, for new business models, for the transparency of our businesses and the security of our data. So it's really important that in many, many fields, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's new business models, new strategies, geopolitical relationships, to understand the deeper shifts, to understand the deeper patterns and the possible scenarios, and not get carried away by the short-term news and by the fear, the uncertainty and doubt we can have. And that's where I think is the greatest leadership challenge. These things, so that with that sense of the future and how it could develop, we can make better choices today.
And you assign too much importance. It's too important on exponential growth and basically scenario planning, right, in this context.
Well, exponential growth is very, very important because we will see within the next 5 to 10 years, computing power of somewhere between 10,000 and 100,000 times more powerful than today. We'll be seeing the same kind of developments in the way we understand the human genome, the speed with which we can map genomes, the rate at which we develop new materials. So in all these fields, things are moving at a rapid pace. And so we need to be able to stand back and think about, well, what could that mean? When we can literally embed computing power in everything from my table to my shirt to the road signs, and they can communicate at speed with everything around them, that changes our understanding of the world. So we need to understand that rate of development and then think about the different scenarios of how that could impact our lives, how that might impact the way we run our business, how we manage traffic on the streets, what that means for the way in which autonomous vehicles, driverless cars could operate. So there's so many things that could change. And that's why we need a little bit of time to think about these forces, to think about how they might come together in different scenarios, and then to say, okay, well, what does our strategy need to be so that we can respond well, whichever scenario might play out, and we're much more flexible and forward-looking as an organization. And that's why today the single most important topic that our clients ask us to help them with is developing their ability, the ability of their leaders to look ahead, to look outside, and to bring those insights back into the organization. So to future-proof the organization by developing futurist leaders.
Yeah. And it's not easy to develop futurist leaders. Probably it requires certain specific skills for them to gain in the process.
Yes, so we all have a history. We have experience, we have assumptions about how our organization works, how markets work, how our competitors work, and we assume that things will evolve gradually. The rate of change now in everything, in society, in technology, in the economy, in the environment, they're all coming together very fast. Plus, we have the impacts of the pandemic, and that's forcing us to challenge everything, our assumptions about where will we work. More and more people are working from home. Our assumptions about the rate at which we'll introduce new technologies like artificial intelligence, our assumption about how the economy will behave. All of those things are changing. And if you look at some industries, for example, the aviation industry, it just doesn't know how to compete in this world or how to survive because the assumptions were built on delivering somewhere between 90 and 110% of the traffic in 2019. The beginning of 2020, those assumptions weren't just challenged, they were totally destroyed. And now the industry doesn't really know what the right business model is going forward and how to shape itself to compete in the future. And so we have to let go of those assumptions of the past. We have to be willing to think about what might be coming, and we have to be willing to think about very different ways of doing things and very different business models. So, for example, in aviation, we've demonstrated how the industry can make more money with 25 to 50% less customers by accepting payment in cryptocurrencies, because those can appreciate in value over time. And you then separate the financial performance of the business from the operational performance. You only have to look at Tesla, very good example, where Tesla makes more money from the appreciation in value of its holdings of cryptocurrency than it does from selling electric vehicles. And they've decoupled their financial performance from the performance of their business in selling new cars. And that's the kind of thing where we have to literally let go of all our assumptions, learn lots of new things, develop our capacity to experiment with new ideas, and to realize that you can't succeed unless you do those experiments. You can't just write plans. You have to go out and try new things. And that's really where the power of foresight and these future insights can change the way our leaders think and can get them to adapt, to experiment, and to be willing to look at previously unimaginable possibilities.
Yeah, and it's just difficult as well at the same time. And when you just talk about pandemic, we have also the climate crisis issue in hand. And when we talk about the growth strategies, usually the growth impacts the sustainable and green development in a negative way as well. So how can we balance both, the growth strategies with the green sustainable economies?
Well, what's interesting is if you look at the large scale studies that have been done about the investment required to really move to a green operating model for our economies, they show that we add to GDP over time. We actually generate growth, both at the national level and also at the individual business level. But it's not immediate. We have to make some investment today in order to get the payoff tomorrow. But there are some things we can do right now that most of us are not doing in terms of reducing waste, in terms of reducing power consumption, simple things like switching off the lights, like reducing the amount of water we use. All of those things save costs today. So we can do a lot of things today that reduce our costs, and then we can use some of those savings to invest in the cleaner technologies. And what we're going to see is that growth of new industries in clean tech, in green solutions, in repairing environmental damage that will create the jobs of tomorrow. They'll create the industries of tomorrow. They'll create new economic growth. So I think it's a very short-term argument to say this costs more. And the money is definitely there. If you look at the investment funds, the pension funds, the high net worth investors who have a lot of money out there, they have to put that somewhere. And the old dirty businesses, if you like, the businesses with a poor environmental footprint are going to have to change. Regulation is requiring them to change. Their customers are requiring them to change. So now they have to do it. And the question is, how quickly will they do it? The faster they make the transition, the faster they'll start to see the benefits, both financially, but also in terms of customer growth. Because customers will increasingly say, well, who do I buy from that has the lowest footprint? Because then I look good because I, as a customer, reduce my total footprint. If I'm a car manufacturer, I want all my suppliers to be reducing their footprint the whole time, because then my total footprint looks smaller. Today, when I do a speech for a bank or a car manufacturer or a telecommunications company, in the proposal, in the contract, I have to demonstrate what I'm doing today to reduce my environmental footprint, but also what my plans are for the future. And that's for one speech. And everyone is being asked to do this. And so what we'll see is a lot of innovation, a lot of focus on these things that will drive greener and greener solutions and more economic benefit. And of course, a health benefit, an optimism benefit, and a sense that we're investing in future generations. And the question there is, how much is it worth to invest in our children, our grandchildren, and their grandchildren?
Yeah, it's very thoughtful, and it requires the larger team environment. The whole world can come as a team, as a big team, the companies, the governments, the institutions, to create that impact for the long term. You have a publishing company as well. Fast Future is also a publishing company. And I know that you just look forward to receiving creative, innovative, experimental content to publish. Can you talk about that as well a bit to us?
Yes, we started back in 2015, and we decided that we wanted to experiment with creating a book very quickly. So we went to some of our colleagues in the futurist world, and we also put requests for submissions out. And we received well over 100 submissions. We were expecting maybe 30 or 40. And we took the very best, and we took, I think it was 62 contributors, and we created a 500-page plus book exploring the future of business. And we did the whole thing in 19 weeks, from idea to publication. And we've discovered now that we can create a process to do that. Our latest two books, we did Aftershocks and Opportunities. The first one we did at the start of the pandemic, or when it's really started to hit globally. And again, we had over 60 contributors. So we split them in two. The first one, we got the contributions in March. We requested them and got them back in March. And we published the book on the 1st of June last year. We then held a number of them over to publish a second book this year, once we'd seen the evolution of the pandemic. And those we published at the end of September this year. But again, we do these things very fast because we want to get the ideas to market quickly. We want to have the broadest possible set of ideas around the world. And the faster the timescale for asking someone to write their chapter, the more likely you are to get good content quickly. If you say to them, you have 6 months to write 1,500 words, they will wait 5 months and 28 days before they start writing. And then at the end of 6 months, they'll ask you for an extension. If you say you have 1 month, and if you don't submit your idea within 1 month, we can't publish it, then you find that most people give you the answer within 20 days. And this is what we found. And we had incredible ideas from Egypt, from the UAE, from Australia, from South America, from Greece, from France, US and UK, 16 countries this time. The previous one, again, nearly 20 countries. And what we find is that you get the most incredible ideas when you pull these things together, and perspectives that you hadn't even thought about. So talking about the future of farming led by women, driven by new knowledge and innovation in Egypt. People talking about new scenarios for global relationships. People talking about what our life could look like if the virus was now something that was a permanent feature. People talking about the new technologies that are coming, how the crypto economy came about, where it could be going and how it could impact our lives. So many great ideas. And we couldn't have come up with those ideas ourselves because they come from different parts of the world where you have different experiences, different cultures, different issues on the agenda. And what we find is our audience love this because we're giving them a truly global perspective through which to think about the future.
Perfect. Great insights. Before we close the conversation, I would like to ask if you have some suggestions for any individual who lives with limited resources within the limited context of resources. How can she or he develop creative, innovative ideas?
Well, obviously, I'm going to say, look at our books. They're very cheap, deliberately. So almost anyone who has an interest can access them from our website. But around the world, and we have a free newsletter, or we have a newsletter which we can make available to free to CSA's followers. And we find that if you look across the web, there are many, many blogs, many, many newsletters, many, many sites that offer insights into the future and what's changing, from the pop trend, what's hot right now, through to deep thinking about what might shape the next 10, 20, 30 years. And depending on your interest, you will find content. So if you are interested in the future of women, you'll find something. If you want to think about the future of agriculture, the future of manufacturing, the future of a particular country like Turkey, you will find very interesting content out there. And the question is, how much time do you give yourself permission to spend reading this? Because as soon as you read one article, you're led into another and another, and you can find yourself spending a day just reading about one topic. This is my work. This is my passion. This is my ambition, is always to help people understand the future and make better decisions today so we can create a better world. So for me, it's what I do. It's how I live my life. But I fully understand that most people have jobs, they're studying, they have families. And so there's only a limited amount of time they can spend. So one of the easiest ways to start is by watching the short videos. Every day you'll find 10, 20 new videos about some aspect of the future. Those topics I talked about, new technologies, new business ideas, new solving existing problems, and new possibilities for the future. And what we encourage people to do is to spend 5 to 10 minutes each day watching 2 or 3 of these short videos, so that we're constantly expanding our thinking, stretching our beliefs, challenging old assumptions, and creating a vision for new possibilities.
Oh, thank you very much, Rohit. That was a great conversation, and hope to meet you as well in person one day.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.